All right, today we are jumping headfirst into one of the most intense and honestly one of the most misunderstood verses in the entire book of Revelation. At first glance, it sounds incredibly harsh, maybe even brutal. But what if the real meaning is something completely different? Let's get into it.
So here it is, Revelation 2, verse 27. Rule them with a rod of iron, broken to shivers. Wow. That is some powerful, stark language, isn't it? It just paints this picture of total, violent domination. It's pretty unsettling. But here's the thing. According to the source material we're looking at, this surface-level reading just misses the point completely.
And that really brings us to the central question, the heart of this whole thing. Are we looking at the threat of some merciless tyrant, or is this actually the promise of a shepherd king? The interpretation we're exploring today argues that underneath all that violent imagery, there's a deep message of righteous, firm, and even caring authority. To see how, we've got to start with that very first phrase.
Okay, first up, let's tackle that explosive phrase, rule them with a rod of iron. Now the common reading, the one most of us jump to, sees a weapon. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if it's not a weapon of cruelty, but a tool of guidance, a shepherd's scepter?
You can really see the two paths right here. On one side, you've got the tyrant's interpretation, oppression, cruelty, power that's seized by force. But on the other side, you see the shepherd's promise, guidance, righteousness, and, this is key, authority that is given, not taken. That one little shift in perspective changes everything.
So let's dig into the original Greek, because this is where it gets really fascinating. The word that's translated as rule is poimeno. And you've got to get this. Its main meaning is to shepherd. It's the action of a shepherd guiding a flock. So right away, the language itself is pointing us away from tyranny and towards leadership.
And what about the rod? Well, the Greek word is rhabdos. And no, this doesn't just mean a club for beating people. A rhabdos is a staff or a scepter. Think about it. That's a universal symbol of a king's legitimate authority, or a shepherd's tool for guiding and protecting the flock. It's about governance, not random violence.
Okay, so why iron? The Greek word sideros points to its qualities: strength, firmness, something absolutely unbreakable. So the source argues that iron isn't describing cruelty at all. It's describing the nature of this divine authority. It's a rule that cannot be bent, it can't be corrupted, and it can't be resisted by lies. It's unshakable.
And you know, this idea isn't just pulled out of thin air. Other parts of the Bible totally support it. Right here in Hebrews 1:8, the scepter is explicitly called a scepter of righteousness. So the Bible itself helps define this iron rod not as a tool of oppression, but as the symbol of a perfectly just and eternal kingdom.
Now, let's move to the next part of the verse, which is, let's be honest, just as intense. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers. Again, sounds incredibly destructive, but context here is absolutely everything.
You have to put yourself in their shoes. In the ancient world, smashing a piece of pottery wasn't just random vandalism. It was a powerful, symbolic act. It meant a final, irreversible judgment had been made. It was like a public announcement that a system or a treaty or an idol was completely false, totally corrupt, and beyond any hope of repair. The original audience would have understood this instantly.
And this isn't some new idea that just pops up in Revelation. It has deep, deep roots in the Old Testament. The prophet Jeremiah performs this exact same act to symbolize God's final judgment on a rebellious system. When that potter's vessel was broken, it meant it was over. There was no going back. So, the crucial point here, the thing we really have to grasp, is that this isn't about physical violence against people. It's a powerful metaphor for spiritual judgment. It's that rod of iron, that unbreakable truth, exposing and completely dismantling corrupt ideologies, false religious structures, and any system that sets itself up against the kingdom of truth.
Now for the final and maybe the most important part of the verse, even as I received of my Father. This one little phrase completely reframes the entire nature of this immense power. So let's look at the Greek again. The word for received is lambano, and it means to accept what is given to you, to carry or bear something that's been entrusted to you. It implies a voluntary acceptance, not a forceful takeover. This is not the power of a conqueror seizing a throne. This is the authority of a son who is entrusted with the kingdom.
And here is the ultimate example of that. The source material points us to Philippians, which explains that Christ's authority wasn't won through conquest. It was granted because of his humility and his obedience.
His exaltation, his power, is a direct result of his submission. Power here flows from obedience, not from aggression.
And this just brings everything full circle, right back to that shepherd idea we started with. The word lambano, to receive, to take upon oneself, that's the very heart of the Good Shepherd, the one who takes our burdens and our sins upon himself. The authority to judge is given to the one who is willing to carry it all.
Okay, so after breaking all of that down piece by piece, what's the big picture? What are we supposed to take away from this fresh look at such a difficult verse?
Well, it really boils down to 5 key points. First, Jesus' rule is that of a shepherd king, not a tyrant. Second, his judgment isn't aimed at people, but at dismantling corrupt systems. Third, his kingdom is built on unbreakable divine truth. Fourth, anything that can't be transformed by that truth is ultimately removed, like that broken pottery, because it's beyond repair. And finally, and this is amazing, believers get to share in his authority and his victory.
So the verse that started out sounding like a terrifying image of destruction is completely transformed into a powerful promise. It becomes a declaration that Christ's kingdom is one of absolute truth and transformation. And in the end, anything built on falsehood, on corruption, or on rebellion simply will not and cannot endure against it.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If that rod of iron is really unbreakable truth, what are the false systems in our world today that are being shattered by it? What are the potter's vessels of our own time that are being exposed as things that just cannot last? It's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.